Welcome everybody to ESO Daily. I am your host, as always, Mystic Raven, and today I'm going to be going over a new build for you guys, which I call the Thundercat build. Oh! So, basically, this is kind of a new build off of my Battlecat build. But basically what we're going to do with this build, I'm going to just get into the character sheet first. With this build, we're looking at 35,112 max stamina. Weapon crit is at 59.9. Typically, I like to keep around 55.5, but I'll get into the build and show you why it's so high. Also, max health, slightly under what I like it to be. I usually like to keep up closer to the 20k mark, but since, the sorcerers can sustain with heals on crit, this kind of works out. And also, my regen is 1,099, and my weapon damage prior to any buffer builder is 3,671. If you look to the left, you'll see my health at 6 points, my stamina at 58, and the boon we're using is the warrior, which increases weapon damage. Okay, now getting into the gear. Now, we are using a double stack set, which are two 5-piece sets of Hundings and Stormmasters along with the Stormfist guys. This is really great. I don't see a lot of people rocking the Stormfist guys because it actually gets recovery, but for this build it really works because it gives a nice sustain. And also a lot of people avoid this because it deals shock and physical damage. Now, for most builds it doesn't work out. It's kind of like, okay. But for the Stamina Sorcerer, it's perfect. It actually works out great. I'll get into why, but this is a really good set for this damn Sorc. Okay, now, also we do have the Shock Masters. We have 5 pieces of that. Now, what this actually is going to do for you, it's a crit set that gives weapon damage. But the nice thing about it is when you actually do a heavy attack, it causes your light attacks to deal 1,530 shock damage for 20 seconds. Now, I'm going to show you how we're going to go ahead and use that. And it might not seem like a lot, but the way I implement it, it works out really well. Okay, so another set we're also using is the Hundings. Now to pull this off, now as you guys can see, my head is always going to be infused, my chest is infused, and of course my legs are infused and everything else is divine. Pretty much I have all stamina except the waist and the shoulders have health. If you want a little bit more health, you can lift one of the smaller pieces up and get a little bit more survivability. That's fine. Also, you're going to need the Stormmaster jewelry set. And this is kind of important because that's how you always do a double stack. When we refer to double stacks, it's because one Tamriel introduced a lot of sets with jewelry. That's what we mean by double stack. Now, the nice thing about this is I lift everything up and, excuse me, so everything's working out pretty good. I'm pretty happy. But you're also going to need a Stormmaster weapon, a sword on this. Because the reason being, when we go to the single bar, because we're using a two-hander, we're using two-hander duel, you want to keep on the hunting side on the two-hander. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to proc on sword side, the Stormmaster effect, and then switch out. But we'll also get into the skill rotation. Now, for this is my back bar. This isn't my front bar. But for my back bar, I'm using Power Surge. Power Surge is going to give me Major Brutality and Major Sorcery. The reason I really want to take the Major Sorcery is to increase the damage from the Storm guys. So for me, that's going to increase the shock damage. So instead of Critical Surge, I took Power Surge. Okay, so it's going to give me an increase by 20% for 33 seconds. And of course, when I do critical strikes, it's going to heal me for 2,550. So even though I don't have 20k health, which I typically like to stay around, it's going to give me a nice self-sustain. Also, we're going to use Deadly Cloak. A lot of people like to use Trap on this. But for me, this works out perfect because it procs Storm guys more frequently, along with Hurricane. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to buff, throw out down my layer, AoE, my durations. That's going to help me proc when I switch over. We're going to use Camouflage Hunter. The reason being, if you actually don't use it on this build, you'll drop the critical rating under 50%. So that's why it's so high. So, and it's also going to give us, when we take a look down at the passives into the Fighters Guild, which I don't have them all unlocked. But Slayer, we're getting additional weapon damage by 3% for each Fighter Guild ability slotted. So that's definitely going to help us by having that slotted along with Flawless Dawnbreaker. It's going to give us a little more bang for our buck. Also, we're going to run bound armaments on both sides. And of course, we have Camouflage Hunter on both sides. Now, on this side, we're actually going to go ahead. Now, typically, I'm not going to use Critical Rush. When I'm in a dungeon, I'm actually going to put Critical Rush over and then switch out for Execute. The Execution is great for two-hander because it's just going to go ahead and, you know, it's an execute. Stam sorcerers. Sorcerers don't have executes, but the two-hander ability gives us an execute ability. So it works out great. It's going to go ahead. I won't need the critical rush in a dungeon. Now, if I'm out soloing, I don't need an execute, so I'll switch it out. So on this, right now, I have critical rush. Typically in a dungeon, I'm not going to go ahead and do that, but I'm going to keep the wrecking blow. Wrecking Blow is going to give us some power. And power is going to increase, it's going to be a buff. It's going to increase our next damage. And I know it's like 1 second. It's a little long, but it really works out, especially when you're going with your executes. Carve. For me, this is a very big deal here because I'm going to swing it, do my weave attacks, apply a bleed, and also gain minor heroism, granting me one ultimate every 1.5 seconds. That's going to go ahead and help me with the main ultimate that I'm going to be looking at, which I need to morph this, which right now I have Berserker Strike. This ignores the target's resistance, physical and spell resistance, for 8 seconds. To me, this is a must-have because, excuse me, I'm using sharpened weapons, but I need more penetration on that execute. So this is a big deal here to use this because I'm going to hit this ultimate and then I can execute a lot faster. Okay, and also a major thing here we're going to take a look at is the sorcerer abilities. Okay, so when we go down to Storm Calling, we got, you know, magic recovery at 10%. That's definitely really nice. Also, Energize. Increase your physical and shock damage by 5%. Now, remember, with the Storm guys, we're dealing physical and shock damage, so this goes well with that monster set. Implosion. This is the big one for me because this actually can proc both ways. Now, typically in the past, for a sorcerer, they're never going to get the physical aspect. They're always going to get the magicka, the shock damage. And for the Stam Sorc, it's usually the physical damage. On this build, you can proc either or. Because if you hit with shock damage, it'll proc that one. If you hit with the physical, it can proc the other one with the Pulverize. So you can get either the Disintegration or the Pulverize with this build. Really great. That's why I really like it, because normally you only have 15%. Now, since you're dealing shock and physical damage, you're basically gaining 30% chance of it occurring because it's a 15 and a 15. So for me, this was a no-brainer. It was like, okay, boom, done. It's over with. I'm definitely loving this. Also, Expert Mage definitely comes in handy because for every sorcery ability slotted, we're increasing weapon damage and spell damage by 2%. So on the back bar, that's why you are going to see us use a lot of sorcery abilities as much as we can so we can increase that damage amount. Okay, now if you wanted to, you could switch out Flawless Dawnbreaker for Power Overload. I do have another build with this that I use Power Overload for the AoE effect, and it works out pretty good. I like it, but you know, it's not competitive. Also, keep in mind, this is probably one of the only times I'm actually going to tell you this. If you don't want to go with Hundings, you have a lot of options, but keep in mind, I would still go with the Crafted. You can either go with Night Mothers, which is great for trial runs because you need somebody with Night Mothers to get a proc, or you can actually go with Twiceborn Star. Now, typically, I don't like Twiceborn Star as much as other players do. I get it. You get another Mundus, blah, 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 blah. But the one thing that is going to help with this build is the Magicka. Magicka is going to increase shock damage. So this is probably the only time I would tell you, if you don't want to go Hundings, you can go with Twiceborn Star. Just keep in mind you do need that Shockmaster weapon for this build. And yeah, you can just you can go with, I had gold hunting stuff, so I'm like, I'm going to use my huntings. So, but you know, did I take a lazy way out? I guess. I mean, I could, you know, whatever. But you know, it works either way. So you can use Night Mothers, Huntings, or Twiceborn Star, whatever your preference is for your secondary stack. And most of the time I like to go crafted because I can control the traits a lot better than a drop. Now, some of the new sets you can pick up and pair with Shockmasters, but I don't like to do that because it's specific. So basically, if you were going with one, it'd say increase your spell damage to shock abilities, increase your spell damage to restoration abilities for prayer or something like that. And I'm like, for this build that doesn't work because you need some more sustained damage. Okay, so I'm going to go check out what it is today. Oh yeah, almost forgot champion points. Let's get into this real quick. Sorry about that. So this is a different kind of build, but Mighty we're going to put up to 23%. That's where all of our base damage is actually going to occur from. Piercing is at 1,217 with 20 points allocated. Precise strikes we have 5%, and of course weapon expert, because we're going to do quite a bit of weaving, is 11.5. Now keep in mind that's why we put into precise strikes, because we do weave, and more we weave, we definitely want to use that to our advantage. Now, this is the big one here. We're going to allocate 12% into Elemental Expert. Why? Because keep in mind, we're dealing shock damage on top of physical damage with the monster set and the Storm Masters. So the more we're able to pump this up, the more we're going to get out of those secondary damage effects. That's why Pulverize and Implosion or Disintegrate work so well. So you definitely want to put in some points into this. When we take a look at the Warrior, we have 15 into Ironclad. That's at 6.5. Hardy is at 23%. And, of course, Elemental Defenders 21. Thick Skin, 3%. And when we come over here, the Warlord, I try to negate as much as possible with this build without trying to be too reckless. But I'm at a decent 13%. I'm pretty comfortable with that because I'm able to keep my stamina recovery at 21%. Now keep in mind, I don't need it at 23 because the Storm Guys gives me recovery. So that's why it's only at 21. Typically I keep it at 23, and I was able to allocate the difference into the Warlord, reducing the cost. Now healthy, I have at a moderate 5%. Tenacity, we do a lot of weaves, especially a heavy attack to proc, so we go 7.4. Nothing is in the shadow. Okay, so that's pretty much how we've allocated the champion points. Now, of course, I am a DPS, and we all know that I'm probably not going to get a Q. I'm hoping, but you know how it can go. Now, if I get a Q, I'll actually switch out some abilities. If not, I'll keep what I got on, and we'll play with it. I don't know what anything is today. Oh my god, is this really happening to me? Of course it is. You guys are all gonna laugh too. I can see all of you just laughing like, oh, Mystic. Oh, that's not bad. I don't mind Elden Hollow. In the DLCs, I always try to get a standard group for that instead of a pug. But Blackheart Haven, what the fuck, man? Oh shit. Okay. Which Elden route was that anyways? Let me check that out. Okay. No, I don't want to trade. Why do people want to trade with me? That's like trying to duel. Oh, one. Okay, we're good. Whatever. Oh no. If I get Blackheart Haven, man, I am so gonna cry. Oh, it's gonna suck. An hour queue. Wow. That just sucks. Let's see if I can actually zone it. We'll try it. I don't know if that's going to work. It's pretty early, guys. And actually, I'm kind of impressed that I actually have some viewers on right now. By the way, thank all of you. I do want to thank all of you for watching. We'll see. I swear, if I get Blackheart Haven, I'll cry. I'll just be like, no. Fuck. I mean, the devs did such a good job when they converted over. I was really impressed because a lot of people just thought, oh, you know, I know this dungeon. It's no problem. We were in Tempest where I needed to get this last fucking ring, and they fixed the bug where you could not pull her out of the room. She just resets now. So we actually have to do the mechanics, and we actually did the scroll. And, you know, when you have to roll out of her AoE, those winds can knock you back in. So you can't, like, I was like, you know, the poor healer, you know, you feel bad for the healer at that point. I mean, we're trying to res, but everybody's kind of getting knocked around. You're like a pinball, like in that last boss fight, like boom, 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 boom. And the tank was beast. And here's the funny thing. I was telling them about my video about how to correctly build a tank. And I'm like, I get backlash because everybody thought, you know, anything over 40k was too much. But this tank, which was his name's Skillix Wise, by the way, Skillix, I'm going to give you a thumbs up, was sitting at 66,000 health. And this dude was beast. He was a monster tank. I got to heal with him, and I also got to damage, do DPS for him on both occasions. This guy was great, and it just goes to show that. And I told him, I said, well, you know, a couple of people were saying you could have too much health, and he's like, what kind of comment is that? And I said, that's my opinion, that's my take on it as well. And it was funny because I actually will say this. Deltia was like, you could you know, too much health, it could be a bad thing, you know, whatever. And I'm like, dude, you're aware that Bone Shield or Blazing Shield will mitigate the damage to 30% of your max health. Meaning, the more health you have, the more it fucking mitigates, man. It mitigates, you know, it mitigates the more health you, based on your health. So to say you have too much health is a fucking retarded statement to make. Yes, you do have less stamina. Yes, you need to manage your resources better. But seriously, guys, this dude was sitting at 66,000. I have the screenshot. Unfortunately, it won't let me show you screenshots. I don't know if I can post on YouTube the screenshot. That would be kind of interesting if I can. But seriously, guys, this dude was beast. He was beast mode. And I'm going to give it up to him. So, you know, Skillix Wise, great job, man. Great job. Let's see if I can, you know, try one more time. If not, I'm just going to go ahead and whatever. I'm just going to, maybe I can get one. I don't know. I don't fucking know. My OCD's kicking in. No, I don't want to wait. I don't fucking want to wait. Now, if I was on my tanker healer, no problem. Oh, okay. There you go. If I was on one of those, whatever. Now, I also have another build I'm going to be posting tomorrow, guys, for a tank build. So, if you all, you know, whatever, I'm just going to go ahead and go fuck off somewhere. I'm so frustrated. Alright, I usually go to Rothgard. Let's try something a little different. I like Craglorn a lot. I really want to show you guys how the procs work and stuff like that. I don't want to have to take up too much time. DPS queues just are terrible. And that's another thing I mentioned to somebody yesterday. Someone's like, you know, what's a fast way to level up? I'm like, what, a DPS? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, go tank or go healer. And they're like, what? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, you take any, race and build you're going to go with, but literally make a magic build, a healer, make a tank, a stamina, a tank, level it up. You'll get instant Qs, you'll get your Undaunted up faster, and then just switch them over. They were like, that's actually not a bad idea. I'm like, yeah, because your Undaunted takes quite a bit of time, especially when you're having to wait for long queue times. So going a tank or a healer, you'll be able to get that Undaunted up faster and get faster queues. Alright, let's see if I can get myself into some trouble in here. Which this is weaker, so I'm kind of a little disappointed. Okay, so I'm going to proc everything up. Now, usually when I switch, I'll do the heavy attack. Okay, I didn't get a proc. I will be getting procs. I made everything so weak around here. This used to be my baby. Unfortunately, not so much anymore. There it is. Now, most of you guys are pretty aware of that if you haven't seen it in PvP. A lot of people like that or thermoscales in PvP. Okay, so after I do the rush, I'm going to try to go ahead, switch back. Alright. Typically, I would be farming all this. Oh, there's a nice outro. Now, the one thing I love about this build is all the firing effects. It really has a lot of effects that fire off at once, so it works out really good. I was half tempted. I used to just come in here and annihilate everything as it is. So they made the bosses a lot harder, which is true. But the mobs are just so weak now. It saddens me. Now, as you guys can see, I am a Khajiit. Can't hide that tail. This is why it's called the Thundercat build. Because we're using a lot of the other shock effects. Now see that 1462 down there? That is from the Storm Masters. Or Storm Callers. I really want to get a dungeon queue. I just don't think it's gonna happen. And nobody's on. Ugh. Makes me so mad. But yeah, guys, if you were kind of wondering, you can go with Twiceborn Star on this. Okay, I'm not going to say you can't. Twiceborn Star actually would be a pretty good set with this. Night Mothers would be pretty good too. Huntings does the job. I actually do like Huntings with this. It still stays competitive. It's fun. It has a lot of proc effects. It is not for your average player. Okay, so if you are a new type player, please do not, until you get a lot of, switching out down, this is not going to be a build for you. You're going to get frustrated because you're not going to be able to switch out fast enough between your front and your back bar. But if you're a veteran player, or a player at least who's good with the controller and, you know, being able to bar swap quite a bit and juggle, then this is a pretty fun build, because to proc you have to do a heavy attack on the sword for the Storm Master. So it's kind of very important that you need to make sure that you're juggling quite a bit. Once you get the proc, though, you can pretty much stand on your two-hander bar and just kind of, you know, make mincemeat out of anything or everything that's coming your way. So it's a really fun build. I really like it. Now, is it something I would use in a trial? Not necessarily. I like Night Mother Alkosh for trial. Alkosh, I like, a lot of people run Vicious Ophidian, but they run the, you know, the 3-piece. They don't go with, you know, 5. I personally am not a fan of Vicious Ophidian. I'm not even going to lie. But the Alkosh, I love it because the proc effect is so much better. See, just everything just melts. It's just sad. But yeah, guys, to me, it's well worth it. So. Now let's see. I should have ultimate, but I don't know what to really use it on. Okay, there's a 20,000 without a crit. Now, sometimes I like to play around just to see what things will do with or without a proc. Because that's kind of giving you a good idea. Because, you know, with the guys, you have an 8-second cooldown. So, knowing what you're doing without your proc effects, if you're going to be running a proc, kind of very important way to go. Yeah. Now you can see one who got disintegrated. I think one, pulverized. When it gets disintegrated, it's like burning ashes. Pulverized is just... But yeah, it doesn't look like I'm going to get a Q, which is a kind of anticipated. I could cheat it, go in a normal random, but and go tank. But healers typically don't. I don't like it. I get mad. I'm not going to do that. Okay. Yep. Anyways, guys. Unfortunate, you know, unless I were probably going to go do something more. Yeah, there's that hand. Now, once again, when I... See, that 7... Okay, now that 17 becomes the procs. You'll see a lot of, like, white damage. You have AoEs, you're layering. Layering is very, very important, people. I cannot stress enough the importance of layering your AoE damage. Okay, we did Darkshade Caverns, and we were on the niche boss, and one of the DPSs were not layering. They were just spamming one AoE ability, and he had Twice Born on. I'm like, you know, I think it's good, you know, but you definitely want to layer AoEs. And, you know, that just goes to show your single target damage can be point on. But if you are firing only one AoE, you're actually losing DPS. So you to have derated effects like, you know, Blade of Cloaks and Hurricane. Those are durated effects. Those will keep firing, you know, within that vicinity. So those are definitely going to help to your AoE advantage. Another reason I like the two-handed sword, it deals AoE damage on weave. So that's kind of a nice thing about this. No, keep in mind the two-handed sword and the shock staff, the electric staff, will actually do AoE effects when they're doing weaves. So that is very important to remember. That's kind of why I always used to do a lightning staff versus Inferno on my back bar, because I could layer the AoE, durated effects, and then do a heavy attack, thus causing more AoE damage. So once again, you're going to see me do the heavy attack. And that's how we layer AoEs, guys. That's how it's done. But yeah, if you have any questions or comments, just post below. I'm sorry I didn't get in a dungeon. It just sucks. You know, I'm just trying to waste time, trying to get a queue. Unfortunately, I'm a DPS. But yeah, guys, this is a really fun build. I call it the Thundercat build. Works out great. I use Sharpen on all the weapons in this build. The reason being because I don't have, like, I don't have my Night Mothers on. Night Mothers will usually give me penetration with that proc, so when I do that, I can stack the difference with Nirnholm. But unfortunately, I'm not using Night Mothers, and since I'm not using Night Mothers or any of my piercing abilities for my bow, I am going to go all Sharpen on all of this. Can you go Nirnholm? Yes, you can, but Sharpen is going to help you out. So just keep in mind this build is using all Sharpened. So, and I'm a stamina build. It's not Magicka. So Sharpen two-hander of the Hundings. Once again, one Sword of Hunting's Rage. You will need one of the Stormmaster swords, and of course I do have it in Sharpen. The Stormfist guys, I do have my head in light and my shoulders in heavy. Everything else is Shockmasters, Infuse, Hundings. Now, the Hundings is where you would replace Twiceborn Star if you want to go with Twiceborn Star. So that's the only reason, or Night Mothers. So that's the only reason I'm kind of pointing it out. Yeah, so that's it, because I have the one sword. So basically I have two pieces of gear with the Shockmasters, and then of course the jewelry, and then the sword on the back bar. So yep, I'm 5 Huntings on this side and 4 Shockmasters. Yep. And then when I switch out to the duel, I got both 5-piece sets. Okay, and that's pretty much how we roll. Like, a lot of people was like, you know, oh, you don't do vet DSA anymore. I'm like, nope, I double stack. I don't need any arena weapons now, and any of my builds. I mean, if you wanted to, I could go with a, you know, a master great sword, or, you know, a master staff, but literally it's not that noticeable. I mean, you can get a little bit extra out of it, a little bit more oomph, but you lose that 4th trait bonus. To me, I'd rather have the 4th trait, because usually it's crit or spell damage anyways. So is it a necessity? No. Can you still farm for them? Yes, you can, but I just don't do it anymore. I don't really care to, period. So yeah, guys, that's how it is. That's how we roll. If you want to go twice born, you can. You want to go night mothers, you can. If you want to go huntings, you can do that with this build. And it's pretty competitive. It really pushes out really decent numbers. I'm happy with it. Once again, I enjoy coming out with builds that most people aren't going to conceive. If you have conceived it, kudos, because that is what this game is about. This game is about taking your creativity to your character and applying it and coming out with something that fits your play style. So I'm always going to tell people, don't believe the hype. Do what works for you, because what works for me might not work for you, and what works for you might not work for me. So once again, guys, keep your options open. Keep the builds coming. I do thank you for all of you for watching, and once again and always, have a nice day.